Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from group 5 and today we're going to present about the equivalence at word level. And before we continue our presentation, let me introduce our group. My name is Isytifana Yaquti as first presenter, Safina Hilmiadiani as second presenter, and Danisya Nurul Ilma as the last presenter. Let's start our material. The first material is lexical meaning. Lexical meaning is defined as the meaning of a base or root word without considering any prefix or suffix which may be attached. An example of lexical meaning is the meaning of the word port in the words import or portable. A word in search language may have many equivalents in transferred language. For that, the translator must be clever to consider a word with the exact equivalent before he makes his choice. One word in search language has many equivalents in transfer language. For example, in search language, they surely needed rice. In Indonesian, the word rice has many equivalents. The word can be padi, gabah, beras, or nasi. To translate the sentence above, the translator must look at the larger context. For example, they all look tired and pale. They surely needed rice. Mereka semua kelihatan letih dan pucat. Mereka tentunya membutuhkan nasi. Polysemy and homonymy. Polysemy is a word that has more than one meaning. For example, a word fresh. Fresh in fresh air has meaning segar. Fresh in fresh water has meaning tawar. Fresh in fresh boy has meaning kurang ajar. Homonym is two or more words which have the same form. For example, how can you can a can into a can? Bagaimana kamu bisa memasukkan kaleng ke dalam kaleng? In that sentence, it actually has two types of word, can. The first can has meaning bisa, and the second can has meaning mengalengkan as a verb and kaleng as a noun. According to Cruz, we can distinguish four main types of meaning in words and utterance. First, propositional meaning. Second, expressive meaning. Third, presupposed meaning. Fourth, evoke meaning. Propositional meaning is a word or an utterance arises from the relation between it and what it refers to, or describes in a real or imaginary word. For example, shirt is a piece of clothing worn on the upper part of the body, but it would be inaccurate to use shirt under normal circumstances to refer to a piece of clothing worn on the wood, such as socks. In this type of meaning, which provides the basis on which we can judge an utterance as true or false. Rule: here, when a translation is described as inaccurate, it is often a propositional meaning that is being called into question. Expressive meaning. Expressive meaning cannot be judged as true or false because expressive meaning relates to the speaker's feelings or attitude rather than to what words and utterance refer to. The difference between don't complain and don't whinge does not lie in their propositional meanings. Two or more words or utterance can therefore have the same propositional meaning, but differ in their expressive meaning. This is true not only words of utterance within the same language, where such words are often referred to as synonym or near synonym, but also for words and utterance from different language. Presupposed meaning. Presupposed meaning arises from co-occurrence restriction on what other words or expression we expect to see before or after a particular lexical unit. These restrictions are of two types. First, selectional restriction. Second, collocational restriction. Selectional restriction. These are a function of the propositional meaning of a word. We expect a human subject for the adjective studious and an inanimate one for geometrical. Selectional restrictions are deliberately violated in the case of figurative language, but are otherwise strictly observed. Second, collocational restriction. These are semantically arbitrary restrictions which do not follow logically from the prepositional meaning of word. For example, laws are broken in English, but in Arabic they are contradicted. The other example, in English, teeth are brushed, but in German and Italian they are polished. Evoke meaning. Evoke meaning arises from dialect and register variation. A dialect is a variety of language which has currency within a specific community or group of speakers. It may be classified on one of the following bases. First, geographical. American as opposed to British English. The difference between lift and elevator. Second, temporal. Word or structure used by members of different age groups within a community, or word used at different periods in the history of a language. For example, verily and really. Third, social. Words and structures used by members of different social classes. For example, scent and perfume, napkin and serviette.
My name is Safina Hilmiadiani and my student's ID number is 19320020. And in this slide, I will talk about the problem of non-equivalence. Lexical semantic problem. Lexical semantic problems can be resolved by consulting dictionaries, glossaries, terminology banks, and experts. The word of a language often reflect not so much the reality of the world, but the interest of people who speak it, by Palmer. Example of semantic fields. The field of speech, or plants, or vesicle. And then the actual words and expression under each field are sometimes called lexical sets. Each semantic field will normally have several subdivisions or lexical sets under it. Example semantic field, field of speech. So the lexical set or the subdivision is it can be verb of speech or maybe noun of speech or maybe pronoun of speech and many more. And then if you take the semantic fields of plant, it can be trees, flower, and many more. There are two main areas in which an understanding of semantic field and lexical sets can be useful to a translator. The first one is appreciating the value that a word has in a given system. And the second one is developing strategies for dealing with non-equivalence, like going from the more general to more specific. The general word usually referred to as superordinate and specific word as hyponym. Non-equivalence at word level. and some common strategies for dealing with it. Non-equivalent at word level means that the target language has no direct equivalent for a word which occurs in the source text. And then common problems of non-equivalence. The first one is culture-specific concept. The concept may be abstract or concrete. It may relate to a religious belief, a social custom, or even a type of food. Example: speaker in English, but it is chairman in Russia. It's different because there is no speaker in Russia vocabulary. And the second one is the source language concept is not lexicalized in the target language. The source language word may express a concept which is known in the target culture but simply not lexicalized, that is not allocated a target language to express it. Example: standard, meaning ordinary, not extra, as in standard range of products. And then the source language word is semantically complex. A single word which consists of a single morpheme can sometimes express a more complex set of meanings than a whole sentence. Example: arwakau. The meaning is clearing the ground under coffee trees of rubbish and filling it in the middle of the row in order to aid in the recovery of beans dropped during harvesting. It is really semantically complex. And then the source and target language make different distinction in meaning. What one language regards as an important distinction in meaning, another language may not perceive as relevant. Example: kehujanan and hujan-hujanan. It's different. And then the target language lacks of superordinate. The target language may have specific words like hyponyms, but no word superordinate, but no there is no general word in or maybe superordinate. The had the semantic fields. Example: in English, facilities, but Russian has no ready equivalent for facilities. And then the target language lacks of specific term hyponym. Language tend to have general words but lack specific ones, since each language makes only those distinctions in meaning which seem relevant to its particular environment. For example, the word hyponym under article. For example, hyponym under article is feature, survey, report, critique, commentary, review, and many more. And then differences in physical or interpersonal perspective. Example: come and go, take and bring, arrive and depart. Physical perspective has to do with where things or people are in relation to one another or to a place. And then the next, differences in expressive meaning. If the target language equivalent is neutral compared to the source language item, The translator can sometimes add the evaluative element by means of a modifier or adverb if necessary, or building in it somewhere else in the text. Example like homosexuality and homosexual in English, and seafood jinsi, sexual perversion in Arabic. It is more expressive word in English, but it is more less expressive in Arabic. And then differences in form. There is often no equivalent in the target language for a particular form in the source text. Certain suffixes and prefixes which convey propositional and other types of meaning in English often have no direct equivalence in other language, like employer and employee, and then using suffixes ish, like in boyish and greenish, and using suffixes able, like in usable and drinkable. And then differences in frequency and purpose of using specific forms, like the using of the continuous ing form in English is more frequently than other languages which have equivalents for it. For example, German and the Scandinavian language. And then the last, the use of loan word words in source text. The use of words in the source text poses a special problem in translation. This is often lost in translation because it is not always possible to find a loan word with the same meaning in the target language, like dilettante in English, Russian, and Japanese, but Arabic has no equivalent loan word.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello friend, my name is Danisya, and in this time I want to tell you about my part, the interpretation of idiom. So, the interpretation of idiom. Do you know the various types of idiom? There are various types of idiom, some more easily recognizable than others, such as it's raining cats and dogs, through caution to the winds, and food for thought, and etc. The next page is the difficulties, the translation of idioms. I'm sorry, uh, here an a typo, an idiom or fixed expression may have no equivalent in the target language. An idiom may be used in the source text in both its literal and idiomatic sense at the same time. The very convention of using idioms in written discourse. Next page. Oh, the translation of idioms. The strategies. First of all, using an idiom of similar meaning and form. The, the, the meaning is same. The strategy involves using an idiom in the target language which conveys roughly the same meanings that of the search language idiom, and in addition consists of equivalent lexical meaning. For the example, you can see at book A Hero from Zero at page 21 The search text is the Sultan's magnificent income was distributed impulsively at his command. The rain fell on the just and on the unjust. Next, B part, using an idiom of similar meaning but dissimilar form. So the meaning is same but the form is not same. It is often possible to find an idiom or fixed expression in the target language which has a meaning similar to that of the search idiom or expression, but which consists of different lexical items. For the example, you can see and you can read there are search tag and target tags, and the search tag is China's panda reserves. The zero, a type of wild mountain goat, is very much at home among the rocky outcrops of Sichuan. The target text using back translate from Chinese, the zero, a type of wild mountain goat, is totally at ease in Sichuan's many rocky levels. Okay, next. This is part C, translation by paraphrase. This is by far the most common way of translating idioms when a match can be found in the target language because of difference in stylistic preference of the source and target language. You can see the example, search text and back translation, and this is from Language and Society number 16, part 4. One frequent criticism of the Manitoba government throughout the language controversy was that it never seemed to get a handle on this issue. Next, part D, translation by omission. Okay, as with single word, an idiom may sometimes be omitted together in the target text. The example from book A Hero from Zero, page 6. It was bitter but funny to see that Professor Smith had doubled his own salary before recommending the offer from Fayette, and add a predate bonus for good measure. And the big translation in here is, it was regrettable, even funny, that Professor Smith had been able to double his salary twice before offering his recommendation to accept Fayette's offer, and that he added to this a bonus, the date of which had been previously decided on.